Welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, flipping loaded on a Wednesday. Your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star. Become a diehard. Pick up a free t-shirt and or hat whenever you're a diehard every single year. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brock. We are here. We're the same. The NFC West, though, it's changing. Seattle Seahawks, Bo Brock, oust Pete Carroll. He gone. Where do you want to start?
I mean, let's start right there. The shocker, right? Who knew that this was going to come? Obviously, you have on top of that the topper from the SEC, Nick Saban, saying goodbye to Bama, but on his terms. When we go to the Pete Carroll press conference today, he said, I lobbied to be the coach, and Seattle forced his ass out of there. They said, hey, cool, Pete. Yeah, here's your gold watch, and here's your desk job. See you later. Thank you for your service. Pete Carroll no longer going to be patrolling the sidelines for the Seattle Seahawks, and the Arizona Cardinals, the direct beneficiary of that. And the Arizona Cardinals were a couple Matt Prater field goals away from already, giving it to the Seahawks and giving them a glimpse of what the future is going to look like. But no longer do they have a future rubber stamp head coach on the sidelines trying to combat that.
I respect Seattle and their ability to try to do better than Pete Carroll.
Sure.
Number one, I don't think that's going to happen. And number two, for the few that have responded to my celebratory tweets today, referencing that Pete Carroll is not elite and that they're going to get a better alternative. I'm asking you, with all due respect, get help. Get help for yourself. 11 of 12 winning seasons in Seattle, propping up now that we know Russell Wilson winning regular season games, getting to the playoffs with Geno Smith. He's a Hall of Famer. He's elite. Is he, Kyle Shanahan cooking with gas right now or Sean McVay? No. But for the better part of the last decade, the Arizona Cardinals have had to contend with potentially 3 Hall of Fame head coaches in the division. That ends today. This is a huge day for Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenford. The cracks of the foundation of the NFC West have started. Yes, they still have to contend with the other 2 teams in the division. But, I'm not here for, Dan Quinn, he's going to right that ship. Bull fucking shit that's going to happen. You're telling me, right, Dan? So you're saying that Dan Quinn, who went 14-23 in his last 3 years in Atlanta, is going to fix this? I'm sorry. That, to me, that's laughable. This is a huge deal. This has ramifications. I'm so fired up for Cardinal fans. Yeah, Seattle, have they been the Legion of Boom? Have they been contending for Super Bowls? No. But he does more with less. When's the last time the Cardinals beat the Seattle Seahawks? Was it 2021? It certainly wasn't this year. I think last year their only division win was at the Rams when Baker Mayfield was playing, or right before that. The Cardinals couldn't beat Pete Carroll. They really had a tough time scoring against Pete Carroll this year. So I'm thrilled that this has happened. I'm thrilled this has happened. Kudos to Pete. Seattle, good luck to you. It's not going to go well. That's my official prediction.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, you have that's when I saw the news today come across my Twitter timeline, it was jaw dropping, and I'm sure Pete Carroll, when they approached him on Monday or Tuesday about this, he probably stopped chomping his gum and nearly swallowed it. Like, okay,
yep,
sure, right. And then you think of Mike Vrabel's available. There's some talented head coaching candidates out there. Jim Harbaugh probably has no love for Seattle with his battles back in the day with the Niners. I don't think he's an option. And then it's just let's play some perfect connecting in the dots, and they give Dan 28-3 Quinn. As you pointed out, 7-9, 7-9, 0-5. Get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. He goes to Dallas, and he gets the Josh McDaniels treatment, right?
Yeah.
Where he goes and he succeeds again as a coordinator, where he'd been successful before that. But as far as a leader of men, He's not going to sniff what Pete Carroll was able to achieve there, as you laid out there. I mean, sure, he missed the playoffs two of the last 3 seasons. This was a team that was over 500 once again. They had a surprise run to the playoffs last year, which was fantastic. And, people, I think, grew to reappreciate what Pete Carroll had done since taking over the reins in 2010. Dan Quinn, he's just like, his defense at the end of his Atlanta Falcons tenure, I mean, it was awful. It was brutal. So to say that he's going to be the guy that's going to go in there and just fix it because he has a defensive background, I mean, based on what? He gave up 28 points to Joshua Dobbs when his uber talented Dallas Cowboys defense lost to the Arizona Cardinals.
He's got a good gig in Dallas. That's why he stayed there. And our guy Deuce in the chat saying, is this the same Dan Quinn we beat earlier this year? Absolutely.
Yes.
And we'll be able to talk about Dan Quinn ad nauseum, if it happens, when it happens. I find it cute that they're pivoting to another defensive head coach, but I would argue Pete Carroll, even with his defensive background, I still think he can handle offense, quarterbacks, understands what to do with that position, the temperature of the room. There's no proof Dan Campbell knows what to do with quarterbacks because Matt Ryan regressed significantly once Kyle Shanahan left. You're getting Dan Quinn, hopefully leader of men, but just defensive savant, right? Who's your quarterback? I think this would be much scarier for Cardinal fans in terms of Dan Quinn being the Seattle head coach if they had a Herbert or somebody like that. Pete Carroll has been elevating this team, and Geno Smith, Seattle's offensive coordinator, is not being interviewed for jobs. He's not going anywhere that.
Yeah.
That's not a relevant role that they have right now. I think, to me, this is a day that represents the true end of the Seattle Seahawks. I don't want to call it dynasty, but the longest tenured run of success in the NFC.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll got here, had 2 years to rebuild, and they have been relevant for a decade. Legitimately longer than a decade. 2011, 2012, from the Marshawn Lynch's run in the postseason where he ran everybody over for the Saints in that wild card game. Since then until now, they have been relevant, a talking point, a consistent contender in the NFC. That's over today.
Yeah.
It's a coaching league, and they don't have a quarterback. So you're going to sit here and tell me that, they're going to beat the Cardinals next year. This is the Cardinals' opportunity to strike. And it's a big reason why, and I'm advocating this in my most recent Johnny on the Spot here at PHNX Cardinals. Cardinals need to be active and aggressive this offseason because you've got a vulnerable situation going on in Seattle. You leapfrog them, and you'll be in the postseason next year.
Well, you must, right? I mean, that the opportunity now has presented itself that wasn't previously there. Now, the odds were, obviously not completely stacked against you. I think Jonathan Gannon proved that you are confident that he's going to figure it out and he's going to be able to match wits and be able to have that battle of the minds against whoever's standing across from him on the sidelines against any other 31 teams. But within his division, it was just a gauntlet. Yeah. And now you've lightened the load a little bit. Now it's okay, you got to you got to hurdle the Seahawks because of where they are. Is you got a better quarterback than them. And I can confidently say that I think they've got a better leader than whoever the hell they sign. I know we're speculating hard on Dan Quinn, and I think players like Dan Quinn. But is he a leader? Is he going to do what's necessary? Is he going to be innovative? Is he going to be willing to change things up, break things down enough to really be the version and the guy that they decided to pivot off of Pete Carroll for? Because obviously Pete Carroll's 72 years old, right? And if the end wasn't today, it was going to be soon. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to make that decision now instead of later, you got to make it for the right guy. And I just don't think Dan Quinn doesn't strike me as the guy. Dan Quinn's fine. Dan Quinn, to Pete Carroll's credit, what he did at the collegiate level, what he did at the NFL level, fantastic. He was a guy that really found a way. He just found a way. No matter what his roster was, he was able to elevate it enough, put in enough game planning, and they were in each and every week. Sometimes they fell short. They made boneheaded plays where they could have won 2 Super Bowls instead of 1. But Dan Quinn might be good with a stacked roster. That's what his career has shown. He might be good. You don't even know it for sure. You got good players, but can you put them in a position for success?
Tell me who this sounds like. A head coach who is defensive minded, who went to a Super Bowl, lost, had an MVP quarterback that season, and now was a defensive coordinator, got another job potentially. It's Ron Rivera. Is Dan Quinn just basically Ron Rivera 2.0? Nice guy, can make the playoffs once in a blue moon. Ron Rivera with Carolina with Cam Newton made a Super Bowl, was the 1 seed, right? And then subsequently had a couple mid-seasons, was fired. That's what happened to Dan Quinn in Atlanta. And Ron Rivera was a defensive coordinator, got another job with Washington. He was okay. And then the wheels fell off. Like, I think there's a much better chance that happens than Dan Quinn is, I'm going to pick up where Pete left off and we're going to rattle off 12, 13 win seasons. Good luck, man. I thought it was an interesting choice when the Cardinals interviewed him this time last year. Like, you and I weren't in love with the idea.
No.
I would have warmed up to it had they hired him, but it certainly wasn't our first choice. I don't even think he was in our top 5 when we did our coaching options. I think he's an elite defensive coordinator. He's an elite defensive coordinator and motivator. It's a completely different ask, and you're seeing it now with a bunch of these guys when you're asked to be the CEO, the guy of the 53-man roster. And we feel pretty good about the situation with Jonathan Gannon. Dan Quinn has not shown, at least recently, that go in and not only manage the defense, and Devin Witherspoon isn't going to be your top priority, Dan Quinn. You're going to have to manage the situation with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, the quarterbacks and the running backs. That's a difficult task. There's only 10 guys who can do it consistently well in the NFL. So Pete Carroll being forced out, I think, will go down as one of the most egregious decisions by Seattle ownership. Because remember, Seattle was owned by I can't remember who they're owned by now, but the brother, and he passed away. So it's like the sister and some other minions now have taken over in Seattle. And it's like, do they have the best interest of the franchise out? Certainly feels like the old guard is gone. Like Russell was the first to go, and I know Pete spearheaded that. What did they think? They were going to win the Super Bowl after they let Russell Wilson go? No, you're paying Geno Smith to be your quarterback. This is as good as it gets. And Pete Carroll got you there. I feel like this is what's going to happen to the Seahawks. They're going to hire Dan Quinn. They're going to trade up for a Bo Nix or somebody like that. And they're going to be a perpetual 6-7 win team. That's what it feels like is happening.
When they were, a perpetual, perennial team that was over 500 with Pete Carroll, he found a way. And, obviously you knew that there was going to be an expiration date. And I think he did a great job in extending that. And, we at least expected another year. I mean, it sounded like, he was saying in the post game that he wanted to come back, and he said it in his exit, presser today. Like, he lobbied to be the guy, continue to be a guy. He's like, I fought pretty hard to stay on as the coach. And they're like, saying back in my day, we used the fullback quite a bit. And they're like, cool, here's your watch. See you later. Thanks, Pete. That's great, man. And it's just, you feel for the guy, because what he had done there and taking that organization to heights that it hadn't reached. He was what was he, 18-9-1 against the Arizona Cardinals? I mean, anytime somebody beats you up like that, it's easy to say farewell.
Yeah. As folks are saying in the chat, like Paul Allen of Phoenix Rising was the owner, and he passed away. It really does feel like they don't really have a clear direction of what they want to do. And maybe they're pivoting hard today. It represents the future for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's talk about the future for the Arizona Cardinals, the Chicago Bears, and some other NFC rebuilding teams with our guy, Brad Spielberger, joining the show now, Pro Football Focus. Brad has been popping off on Twitter lately. I absolutely love to see it. Going to war with people. So are you kind of a closeted Bears fan, Brad?
Oh, it's not closeted. I guess I try to, because because I cover all 32 teams and try to, I don't want to be a full-on Bears account, but no, I'm a diehard Bears fan. There's a poster of Mike Ditka right here.
Nice.
There's a closet full of Bears jerseys right over here. Nothing closeted about it. I just try to cover the whole league, not just one team.
And I think that you had a very level-headed, I thought that you're maxing out the character limit on your Twitter like last week. Thoughts on Justin Fields? I completely agreed with it. Like, you thought you'd seen a few strides, but was it enough? And given the situation, and I'm paraphrasing to very, very quickly here, but you feel like Caleb Williams is probably the right direction for this Bears team to go after it was all said and done.
Sure, and just tied into Arizona, I know it's a different conversation now, but like if you had 1.01, it's a different conversation to me at least than if you're sitting where you are now. Where if I'm the Cardinals, like I'm not interested in do I compare QB3 to Kyler Murray? No, it was hey, is Caleb or Drake May a guy that we think is a generational prospect, whatever buzzword you want to use? If not, then we're going with Kyler. We're getting an elite receiver. So I feel the same way. If the Bears were sitting at the 3rd overall pick from Carolina, say, okay, awesome. We're going to get an elite receiver and a Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll use the 9th overall pick on a tackle or whatever the case may be, and we're off and running. It's more just that for the 2nd year in a row, you've been gifted the 1st pick in the draft, and you can't pass up on it again. Last year's prospects were not, I think, held in the same regard. The top 2 guys this year, are really, really special players.
So you mentioned top 2 guys. We need this to become a Jaden Daniels hype train program. With New England sitting there in 3, like what has to happen for Jaden Daniels to go 3rd overall? Because it feels like the Belichick thing, what's happening there? Like, I don't feel like Bill would take another rookie. I feel like he would try to win, take a plug and play player like Marvin Harrison Jr., get a veteran. But like, what kind of dominoes do we need to see so quarterback goes 1, 2, 3?
I do like Jaden Daniels a ton. Let's be clear there for sure. I think some of the knocks on him are kind of funny too. Like I've seen some people say, oh, he's a late breakout. He had 400 passing yards and beat Justin Herbert in a game at Arizona State when he was a true freshman, like 5 years ago. Like this guy has been a baller for a very long time. Obviously did not declare. And of course, the Heisman all that has boosted his stock to a higher level. But I think he could go, that early. It's you never know with the quarterbacks. Guys always creep up the board and go earlier than expected. And the Patriots, I think it's maybe a Vrabel destination. Maybe they just start from scratch and don't go with a connection and kind of just revamp the whole process. I do think Bill is going to be out of there at some point in the near future. They're just kind of working through all their options, figuring everything out. And I think they have to go quarterback, whether it's Bill or not. If it is Bill, he's got to take quarterback. I mean, they don't have one on the roster. So, hey, maybe you guys are in a good spot where the first non-quarterback off the board is an Arizona Cardinal.
All right, now that we're having that conversation, I mean, it's easy now that you've identified Kyler Murray, and I think he did his end of the bargain at the end of this season here for the Arizona Cardinals to at least give the fan base some reassurance. He played really well down the stretch. The Arizona Cardinals, so many needs still on this rebuild, but would help to kickstart things with Marvin Harrison Jr. Am I right?
Certainly would. And look, I'm not going to try to like hot take or galaxy brain or anything like that. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number 1 receiver in this class. I think that is clear. But in the same way that I would say in most draft classes, Drake May probably is the number 1 prospect. And I still want to go through and watch all of their film again. But I do have Caleb Williams as the number 1 guy personally for whatever that's worth. I'm not a quarterback guru, but and then I would say the same thing about Malik Neighbors is probably the number 1 receiver in most draft classes. This guy is a special, special player. If you want to comp, he kind of does remind me of DJ Moore a little bit, not just in that because the Bears connection. He's like the great run after the catch type of guy. He's physical. He's big. He can push guys off at the line that are trying to press him and bump him off his routes. He's a complete player. He can win downfield, intermediate, over the middle of the field. Trust me, I don't be upset if you end up with Malik Neighbors. You're still getting a really, really talented player.
So, Brad, we touched on this last time you were on the show. So we've got big time problems with the Houston Texans continuing to win games. Like that was supposed to be our Carolina pick. It was supposed to be in the top 5.
Yeah.
They won the division, and they're hosting a playoff game against Joe Flacco this weekend. So we're lighting that pick on fire at this point. And while I proposed to Bo in the chat yesterday, and I got almost driven off the stream, that I think the Cardinals should trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr., just get some assurance, go from 4 to 3. That pick is interesting now. Like, do you think it makes sense? Like, Brian Burns is available. Make a phone call. See if you can net him. Like, those picks in the 20s, and I know it's a loaded draft, but given where Arizona is, Pete Carroll's gone today. Kyler Murray plays really well. Should have been 500 in his 8 games coming back. Like, as much as I want to commit to, rebuild, every year we're grinding it out, draft and develop, it does feel like when you pass on Will Anderson Jr., you trade down, you recoup picks, now is the time to strike and get impact makers. Am I wrong there?
I would say this, like the general principle for me is always going to be you do want to overall just trade down, stockpile, draft and develop, all those things. However, really what it's about is you can pick your spots. I don't want you to be the New Orleans Saints and you're trading up every single year. You're adding 4 guys a year to the roster. I know they drafted well for a stretch of years. They also just missed the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row, and they stink, and they're old, and they're not good. So I'm just taking some victory laps in the Saints, whole different thing. But what it does is it gives you optionality. And you sit there and say, because our general principle is to move down to get more capital, more ammo, we are going to at times go up or use that draft pick to get a veteran. And the best examples are the Eagles and the Ravens. They still skew towards, think about Baltimore, for example. You move off of Orlando Brown Jr. You move off of, obviously, Marquise Brown. Like, that's your general MO. But then when you want to strike and go have an A.J. Brown type traded for the Philadelphia Eagles, you still do that as well. And the Eagles obviously have all this extra draft capital from the trade with the Saints. So long answer short, I don't disagree with you. I think Brian Burns is going to get tagged and then is going to beg for a trade to get out of Carolina. Why not explore that potential trade?
Brad, you do great work, obviously, Pro Football Focus, where you can find some of your free agent rankings already up there. 150 deep now? Is that?
We're still at 100, but we're getting there. We're
still at 100, yeah. And you've broken it down by position as well, and those are great lists. But when you look at the organizations maybe poised to make the most noise this offseason, are the Cardinals in that conversation? And who else are the ones armed with cap space and draft capital that you think can really improve rosters?
Yeah, Cardinals are top 10 in projected cap space as of today. Obviously, the 2 first-round picks. I know you were hoping for, a top 5 or top 10 pick and not, something in the 20s, but still, always great to have. I agree it's a good class. We touched on receiver. I think there will be some good tackle talents available at that 20-ish range too. And now, of course, with the injury to DJ Humphries at left tackle, I'm sure that becomes a big priority. I also think a lot of the edge rushers are going to fall more towards that range. Good players. I don't think any of them are great special talents besides Alayatu Latu at UCLA. And he, has some injury history, kind of some question marks there. So I think Arizona is going to be very active. I think the point of taking a step back last year was so you could take a 2 steps forward this year. And patience is great from Monty and Gannon. They knew the assignment, but they're not going to sit there and just not try to win games. They probably want to win games next year, make the playoffs. Pete Carroll's gone. They're probably trying to jump right back into the mix.
So you mentioned him. So DJ Humphrey, since the last time we talked, tore his ACL. He's still waiting to have surgery. He's got to wait for the swelling, I think, on his MCL to go down. All-time, first round signing, draft pick of the Cardinals, great Cardinal, but it does feel like, he probably won't play at all next year. And they had an option to keep him. I think most of his guaranteed money was gone. What do you do with that now? Because you have a huge hole now at left tackle or right tackle, depending on what you do with Paris Johnson Jr. Are you cutthroat? Can you manipulate that? Walk our viewers through that, because me, myself, I don't understand the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, so there are no injury guarantees remaining in the rest of his contract. So what would happen in theory is you do release him. You're clearing $13.8 million. So I just mentioned how Arizona's already top 10, and now you're adding a giant chunk to the equation there. And what would happen is it's a whole convoluted process. You would pay him a little bit in injury protection benefit, be about $1.2 million on the salary cap, but it's either $1.2 million in addition to some dead money, or paying him a $15.7 million salary, like you said, to probably not play. So I do expect he is going to get released and they'll move on. He has been an awesome Cardinal. I think probably doesn't get enough respect for the journey he's had. Been a very good bookend, but I think that's how you go about it. And then you maybe, use one of those picks there, maybe foray into free agency. I think that is the appropriate approach at left tackle.
When you follow Pro Football Focus on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, you guys have all these great, landing spots for some of the big names, including Tee Higgins. You got, the Bengals, Panthers, Patriots, Chiefs, other. When you start to compile this stuff, and I know you're the one kind of leading the charge, I'm sure, over there, which players, big name players, are you just connecting the dots with the Cardinals for? If it's not maybe T or some of the other ones.
Yeah. I think one of the receivers I got a Cardinals mention. I do think that position makes a whole lot of sense. For them, it is receiver. It is corner, I think, is a big one as well. If a Jalen Johnson hits the market, if a L'Jarius Sneed hits the market, I guess plays more man coverage, but I think Gannon would be intrigued by that inside-outside skill set. You can do different things with him, move him around. Chidobe Awuzie in Cincinnati, kind of working through an injury of his own, but a very good zone corner for a while in Lou Anarumo's defense. I think those spots do jump out. And the last piece for me is defensive line, right? I think a guy like a Jonathan Gannon would be very attractive. Current Houston Texan. We'll see if he plays in the playoffs, but had a great year for himself. Really, really good run defender with pass rush upside. Like I said, had a great year this year. Like those type of names, corner, edge, and receiver, I think make the most sense for Arizona.
Did you hear that? Can you say that for Johnny one more time? Was it Jonathan Gannon from the
Bo brought
Texans?
this up yesterday. So he's being a smart ass. I understand. I would take that. I'm not opposed to that.
12 and a half sacks, 15 TFLs, played at Louisville, the alma mater of Jonathan Gannon. It just made so much damn sense.
I don't love ACC defenders, Brad. That's a different conversation.
Despite being so productive in the AFC South.
I do want to grave dance a little bit on Chicago Bear fandom, because we have been told for about 4 to 6 weeks, you idiots, you're not getting Marvin. We're taking Marvin. We're going with Justin Fields. And then today, Ryan Poles kind of stepped on everybody's throat and used the word but, and basically said, but we're going to pivot to Caleb Williams. He didn't say as much. So are you pretty confident Williams and Drake May are going to go 1-2? Like, is that all but a done deal? Because it does feel like we could probably see a Justin Fields trade in like a month. Like that feels like something that has to happen quickly, because you don't want to let that fester.
So, yeah, Bulls last year, traded the first overall pick before free agency began. It was probably, right, I want to say like March 2nd. So, 6 weeks from where we're sitting right now. I won't say it's like ironclad, lock it in with a Sharpie. I'd be shocked. I'd be truly flabbergasted if they don't go that direction. I don't want to look. I'm a Bears fan, so I'm not trying to give up the secrets here. Like there, you want to drive his value higher. You want teams to think you really are struggling to make this difficult decision. You love them, and they do love him so much. They do. As a person, they genuinely, the quarterback they're looking for, they say, I hope this kid is every bit like Justin Fields as a leader, as a person, as a friend, as a culture builder. They could not like him more. On the field, it's just not really there, in my opinion. Not all his fault, but yeah. I think those guys are going 1-2. I don't know what the order will be, but that is my expectation.
Brad, we'll get you out on this one. When we look at the draft and we see free agency, we talk about all these big names, but is there anybody, much like the previous question I asked, like, is there anybody that just to you fits what Jonathan Gannon or Drew Petzing or Nick Rawlis likes to do in either one of those avenues to improving this team that might not be like the marquee name, but you're like, that's a Cardinal, in my opinion?
It's interesting. I think one, I don't know if they crossed paths in any of their stops, but Steven Nelson's been a good veteran corner for the Houston Texans all year. Obviously plays a ton of zone down there as well. And I think he would just make sense if they wanted to add a veteran presence, a guy that is scheme diverse, can play all different alignments, add a little bit of edge, a little bit of nasty to your defense, particularly in that secondary. I shouldn't just say secondary, but obviously that is Gannon's MO. The draft class is really, really good at corner as well, if we're going to stick with that theory. And if you're thinking like names that are going a little bit later, maybe people aren't talking about quite as much, I'll give you a couple. One to me is Quinyon Mitchell at Toledo. You're going to hear his name a ton. I think he might be a top 50 pick by the time this is all said and done. He's PFF's highest graded corner 2 years in a row, which might never happen again. Like the variance that happens at corner is wild. So for him to pull that off is pretty crazy. And then a guy that is just a kind of guy I love personally. I don't know how good of a scheme fit he would be, but Kyrie Jackson is a corner at Oregon. To me, he moves really well for a guy who's 6'3", 200 pounds. Like I just think he's fluid. He's not Christian Gonzalez, who we may have discussed. I have a huge crush on, but he's a really, really good big physical outside corner that I think again can play some cover three, do different things. That position in the draft is loaded.
It's funny you said Steven Nelson. Sorry, Johnny. I just wanted to work this in. Like when the Cardinals were playing Houston before the week of preparation, Jonathan Gannon said his name a couple times, and he said it almost just with a little twinkle in his eye. So it might be a good vet corner to add to this roster.
And probably wouldn't cost you a ton of money. And so I asked that, Brad, because this team has no defensive linemen. And I'm not just paraphrasing. They have no defensive linemen. And this draft class, while they can get quality depth, day 2, day 3, it doesn't feel like they're going to go heavy, at least in the first round of defensive linemen. Just the talent's not there. You have to lean into the talent of the draft. So like Christian Wilkins, I talked about him yesterday. Is he an option? Is he going to hit the market? Because it does feel like you're going to have to overspend on somebody, even if like Wilkins is turning, 28, 29 soon. that does feel like the splurge spot, because what alternative do you have?
I agree. If Justin Madubuike makes it out of Baltimore, you need to be in the conversation there. If Christian Wilkins makes that out of Miami, you need to be in the conversation there. I could not be more with you. We saw last year some good players. I guess like a Zach Allen go elsewhere and play some good ball for a new team. I think defensive line, I agree. We spent too much time on corner. Gannon comes from a Philly team that also had one of the better defensive lines we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think it should be a priority. And I agree with you. It's not a great early spot in the draft, but I do think at that 20 spot, here's some names I think aren't going to go as early as people talk about. Jared Verse at Florida State, I think will be there for the Texans pick. Even Dallas Turner from Alabama, I kind of think will be there for the Texans pick. They're good players. Just to me, they're not like special talent, top 15 type players when there's this much talent on offense. So I'll throw those two out. Maybe second round, potentially Chop Robinson from Penn State. I think he could be there as one of those like early second type players, a very, very bendy, good, explosive, bursty edge rusher. I'm with you. You got to spend there or draft there as well.
Right. We always appreciate the insight. Even got it via Kyle Odegaard a week ago with your insight on DJ Humphries. It's invaluable. You got to check it out. Pro Football Focus. He's going to expand the top 100 free agent list to 150 and then 200. And of course, your insight in the draft. Unbelievable. At PFF_Brad Spielberger. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, my guy.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Fantastic stuff, man.
Follow him on Twitter. He keeps it real. We like to feel like we keep it real with like Cardinal fans. Like, he was ahead of this Caleb Williams thing before any other Bear fan, I feel like, and just making people take their medicine. I'm about that shit. I like that. I like when it's just we're here to be uncomfortable. And sometimes you say things that aren't super popular with people. And then look, he was proven right today when Ryan Poles came out there and was like, we're just going to look at all of our options. Justin Fields probably won't be on the team in about 2 weeks' time. We're going to talk about
out of the bunker.
Yeah, jeez.
Where were they the last couple days? The entire Bears brass, they were just disappeared.
They fired all the coordinators and they have a lame duck coach to welcome Caleb to the Windy City. You'd love to see that. You also love to see our friends at BetMGM. BetMGM, bet 5, get 158 instantly. Well, let me tell you about it. Right now, bonus codes PHNX. All you got to do is sign up, BetMGM. We've got a full slate of playoff games on the docket. Right now, there's no better time than to bet 5, get 158. I'm going to put my $5 on Cleveland. I don't feel very good about it, but I just by hook or by crook, I can't expect CJ Stroud to continue to do this. So how about a little dabble? We'll do a parlay with our friends in Cleveland, and I do think Detroit is going to win at home. So there's a 2-team parlay. Bet $5, get 158 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager, which is fantastic. So if you're winning, they're coming. If you're losing, they're coming. Check out the show notes for full details. Now listen to my guy Shane Diefenbach talk about it in the disclaimer.
Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
You got to check out what's going on at OG's Brands. They've got the big gummy, the big OG's gummy. It's bigger in your face. It's unbelievable. It's perforated into 10 gummies that you can turn into, an individual slice, or you can go from 10 milligrams of THC, and then you got in total 100 milligrams of THC. It's unreal what they're doing there. It's not the only new product that they have. You got to check out their website, ogsbrands.com. Follow them on social as well, at OG's Brands. They've got Peg's Raspberry Orange, that RSO. That's the big time gummy. They've got the Sleep Time gummy as well. That's in the aquaberry flavor. It's going to help put you to sleep, keep you to sleep. You're having a tough time getting to sleep because you're so excited about the Cardinals offseason, then get that aquaberry flavored Sleep Time gummy. They got something for everyone. It's not just, one experience for your gummy here. It's a tailor fit to the experience you're looking for. And OG's is going to take you there. They're in your local dispensaries, but like I said, go to their website, ogsbrands.com. Check out the entire product line and tell them your friends over at PHNX sent you. You got to be 21 years or older.
I'm only friends with people who like this video here on PHNX Sports on YouTube. Leave a like, drop a comment down below. We got a couple super chats, and then we're going to keep this conversation going. Everybody, you guys are crushing it today in the chat. Deuce, our guy, deep playoff run next season for us. Go Cards. I think they'll be in the playoffs, and I think the groundwork has begun. Bo Brock, today just kind of solidified it for me. It's like Pete Carroll's bowing out. He saw what Jonathan Gannon could do with popsicle sticks and duct tape. Wait till he gets a big boy roster. So, yeah, Seattle's imploding. Let's hope the LA Rams and San Francisco 49ers follow suit in the playoffs.
The sensible Bo chat messages are about to drop, but a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done, my guy. $2 super chat from our guy Greg. Thank you, Greg. Trident stock plummeting after today's news. Was that the gum brand for Pete Carroll? He was just chomping Trident. Is that confirmed?
I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I mean, maybe
to get that kind of chomp on a stick of Trident, you got to have at least 4 or 5 pieces in there.
He is an elite head coach, and I will not hear anything otherwise. The gum jokes are great. I love that meme where it's got the little, what do you call it?
Monocle?
And the top hat. He's an all-timer. He's an all-time personality, and they will miss him dearly. And I don't know what that was today, basically forcing him out. But good luck to you. As somebody who followed the St. Louis baseball Cardinals for a long time. What happened to them when Tony La Russa left? Like, you can't replace legends. You can try, but you can't. You can't do it.
Yeah. He's a 4-letter word here in the desert.
I know.
Terrible.
He's tough. He's tough. I love my Diamondbacks. Chaz in the chat, $4.99. Johnny may have to walk with Marvin Harrison Jr. to the bathroom. Oh my God. Take one for the team. Go Cards. I would expect Marvin will have an entourage that I will not be able to penetrate or get through to just say hi to Marvin at the combine. I think my best bet is I will camp out in front of his podium way ahead of time. We'll get you the clips and the content you guys want, but bathroom breaks are only for me and Anthony Richardson.
Let me ask you this, and this is tough to predict because it's an inexact science, but he's a top prospect at his position, doesn't have to do a single thing to keep that between now and draft day.
Okay.
I am almost want to go and say Marvin Harrison Jr. at most just does the interviews at the combine and probably doesn't work out that much.
You're probably right, but I hate that because I remember when everybody did everything at the combine, like Julio Jones. Remember Julio Jones's workout at the combine? So I mean, wouldn't bother me, but he's like super uber competitive. Like, he hears what Brad says about Malik Neighbors, and it's just like, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to help myself and prove to everybody. But you're probably right. He probably doesn't do anything. Maybe he runs the 40. I'd love to see him run the 40, wouldn't you?
Me too. I mean, Will Anderson Jr. last year was going to be the top edge, and he went out there and worked out. He did a little bit.
He with linebackers,
didn't
he? I mean, he worked out not even with his position group.
I mean, a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't shy away from the work, but I got, but also there are, his representation is going to try to do a lot of heavy lifting here. And he's a soft-spoken guy and might just let them kind of lead the way. Like, we didn't see, like, Kyler didn't run a 40, right? Kyler had a pro day. Like, my guess is like Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to do the bulk of his work at his pro day.
And the combine is there to meet, to do interviews, to do the whiteboard, and for other guys to help themselves that maybe we're not considering right now.
Yeah.
And so you're probably right. Although, like Brian in the chat, I agree with this. His dad's old school. Maybe he's as a testament to his lineage and his heritage. Like, I'm going to go out by the year.
Like, you're going to get down here and you're going to work out.
I will support whatever decision he makes. I will spin it to our benefit. I will be in his camp regardless. What I will say is this.
You'll be following him to the restroom.
True story. Trevor Sikkema and Brad Spielberger, both friends of this program at PFF, have like tripled down on Malik Neighbors. I've got people sending me DMs constantly. You guys are my DMs. Like, watch this, look at this. I get it. He's legitimately awesome. He's the real deal. So have I warmed up to like taking him at 4 if Marvin goes 3? I'm not at that point yet. Could I get there? It's a possibility. I'm going to say right now it's a possibility. My preference is still Alt or Fashanu, but like I don't think it's out of the question. Like, is Malik Neighbors a top 3 to 5 player by the time April 26 rolls around. I guess that's a possibility.
Award-winning producer Damon Dodd, can I see the draft top 10 real quick? We would, because I see if Marvin goes 3rd overall or before the Cardinals pick at 4th overall, I think that the next best option is to remain in the top 10, but trade down and then take Malik Neighbors wherever you potentially.
I think we saw last year, though, that's easier said than done. We all thought we were trading out right when
Monty made it look pretty easy. And he, even though he had to trade assets to get back in there, at the end of the day, it was a net win.
Okay, so hypothetically, Patriots take Marvin, and I collapse on set during our draft party. So then we're talking about you have a buffer of Neighbors and the 2 tackles. So you cannot trade, and somebody's trading up for Jaden Daniels. So then that means that you would need to go no lower than pick 8 and stay in front of the Bears, because you assume that, okay, you would have to get to Tennessee's pick, basically. You can't drop.
I think Jaden Daniels gives you an opportunity that you really didn't have when the Cardinals did get on the clock at 3 last year, with a quarterback being available that people deem worthy of that, where it's like, you want to come up and get this edge. Like, I think as far as the teams that were willing to do that, it was almost just like the Texans were just negotiating against themselves at that point.
It was great. I loved it so much.
I know, and you still came out with a great haul. So,
do you think Jaden Daniels right now is going to be considered a better prospect than Anthony Richardson?
Wow. I mean, it's completely opposite ends of the spectrum, where you've got Anthony Richardson, who is an absolutely just tool shed. I mean, when you talk about size,
not good college stats.
Size, like productivity at college wasn't there, where Jaden Daniels, the productivity is there. And then you're saying, is this going to translate? And then you're like looking at Anthony Richardson, you're looking at the skill set, but not the stats. You're like, how does this not translate? How can we translate this into productivity at the next level? That's tough. I think that there's going to be more of a market for Jaden Daniels than there was for Anthony Richardson. And in a market that's within striking distance of making a deal for him.
I also think the Cardinals will benefit because there's not going to be a smear campaign against Drake May like there was for CJ Stroud, because there were a lot of teams last year that thought after Bryce Young went to Carolina, these other teams were like, well, you know what? I can just wait for my quarterback. We're going to have a smear campaign of CJ. Anthony Richardson, we'll see. I remember like the day of the draft, I saw mocks, he was falling out of the top 10. I think those top 2 guys are so solidified, regardless of who picks them.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a severe sense of urgency for all these other franchises that have nothing at the position, and you're fighting over one guy. Like the Commanders and the Bears have their ticket to the dance. They're set. They're ready to go. The Patriots then have to feel something making them say, well, if we don't take Jaden Daniels now, he gone. And then it's like, do we have to reach for a Bo Nix? Do we have to reach for a Michael Penix Jr.? That will help the Cardinals, I think, exponentially. So I love Brad's take of like, the Patriots have to take a quarterback. That's the first time I've seen somebody say that, because he's right. Especially if they have a new coach, like, you want to set yourself up for success. If you're embarrassing at the quarterback position, you will get fired. Like we've seen that time and time again. So buy yourself some time with a rookie and then try to load up the rest of the roster.
Yeah, some great messages in the chat. Brian, Richardson is a project. Daniels is more pro ready.
I agree with that.
You've got Ken saying Daniels in New England. I also saw Kurt say, as far as Pete Carroll saying he wasn't fired, he stepped down, he's still with the Seahawks. Look, Pete Carroll said in his own press conference that he lobbied to be the coach. He was removed from being the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He can go have some office in the facility, but he was removed as their head coach. He wanted to stay on there. So, I mean, I know we can nitpick whether he was fired or what happened. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't his choice, and the Seahawks are looking for a new coach.
He was fired. They're basically allowing him to stay on staff until he gets another job because they have to pay him so much money on his contract. But they want somebody else coaching their football team, and he wanted to be their coach. He was fired. RC3 Chambers, back-to-back super chats. Let's get to them. 2 scenarios. First of all, thank you so much. A combined $12. Thank you so much, RC3 Chambers. 2 scenarios. Would you take your late pick, player 3rd round, and a pick for next year to move up and get a top 10 like the Texans to get Marvin Harrison Jr. and Alter Fashion? This is a hell of a proposition. Or a haul of picks this year and next year. I am not RC3 Chambers in a position where I don't want to hoard for 2025. I think, and that's not to say I want to like hemorrhage the picks in 2025 as well. But I don't want to be sitting here on Sunday after we have 10 hours of draft content doing mock drafts for 2025. I've done that already. This is the draft to go all in on. So if you're asking me either or, I would trade future picks to secure a blue chip wide receiver, Hall of Fame level, and Joe Alt, who I think is as can't miss as a left tackle as you can get. If I'm picking between the 2 instances, this is the draft. Because what if you trade next year's draft? Whatever, meh. It's another one, meh. It's a 2013 draft. If you believe in the player and you've got them graded out for 18 months, pull the trigger. I support you.
You act like this draft is going to be the keys to unlocking your championship window.
You might.
No. This draft is so imperative and huge for this rebuild to really restock and add some talent to this roster. And Monty Osborne's fully capable of doing it, but like I'm trying to really decipher what the question was. So do you get Marvin Harrison at 4 and then you're trading back up into the top 10 to get one of those tackles,
or trade down and accumulate more picks for future years?
Yeah. I mean, look, if it's as simple as you're pairing the Texans pick with one of your 3/3, then sure. But if you're giving a significant chunk of the remaining 5 selections that you have in the first 3 rounds, I'd be hesitant to do that because I think that there's enough talent at the tackle position throughout the draft that you can find somebody in that position. And like, I'm more of a Fashionu guy than alt guy. So like once Fashionu's off the board, I think that, I don't know if I would go up and get alt. Our guy Easton jumping in here, $4.99 super chat. Good riddance, Pete. Now we only have to deal with Shanahan and McVay for 4 games a year. Absolutely. That was the point at the top of the show from both of us.
Yeah, and let's hope McVay opts to do TV sooner rather than later, especially when Matthew Stafford decides to hang it up. We're talking draft here. We're talking free agency. Whatever you guys want to ask, we will answer. But we got some insight from our guy, friend of the program, Benjamin Albright, took to Twitter today, was doing some Q&As. It's our boy Benji's time to shine. January till about April, he is locked and loaded. He was the one that told us last year Cardinals aren't in on Will Anderson Jr. He told us about Jonathan Gannon. Well, he answered a couple interesting things. Let's start with this one as it relates to those quarterbacks, Bo. And we asked Brad Spielberger. He was pretty confident Jaden Daniels has got momentum, as does Benjamin Albright. Somebody asked him how many quarterbacks in the first round over under 4.5. He said, tough call right now, but he feels like Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels are, quote, top 5 locks. And he's got some info on McCarthy and Bo Nix. But I'm sorry, the top 5 has 2 teams that have franchise quarterbacks they're not moving off of. In the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and of course the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. I mean, I look at that and I'm just like, well, maybe the Patriots move out of 3 and they pull a Cardinals and they trade to somebody that, needs a quarterback more than them, I guess. Or maybe this is a sign like if Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 3, God forbid, Bo, the Cardinals will undoubtedly trade their pick to somebody for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. And then his thoughts on Penix, who was one of those kind of names that was trending, and then the natty happened and people kind of soured on it. They see the age, they see the injury history, and it's really a 3 quarterback class right now, at least the first round, that you can confidently say. And yeah, I mean, it's the Patriots either stick and pick and take Daniels, or the Cardinals are really and the Chargers. I mean, they should do some wheeling and dealing. Like, all right, who like, I've been talking to people about this quite a bit today. Like, who do the Chargers benefit from sticking and picking just at 5?
I mean, it feels like a lot of their concerns are on the defensive side, like the Cardinals, and there's nobody that warrants that. I don't know. They've gone offensive line. They took the guard, a couple of years ago from Northwestern, I think, and
Boston College.
Yeah, Boston College. They keep going wide receiver early. They took Quentin Johnson last year. That was a bust. Like, they've got Mike Williams. I don't know what Keenan Allen was good this year. Like, do they just say we're going to go best player available? I think that's a possibility. I think they could take Neighbors. I think they could take a tackle just because, like the Cardinals, those are the best players.
Do you know who I see mocked to them quite a bit?
Who?
Brock Bowers.
I mean, good luck to you. If you're the new GM and head coach and that's what you do, put a ticking timeline
to go. And I know whoever's taken over for Telesco.
It's a horrendous pick. That would be one of the worst picks I've seen in 20 years.
And
if you're rebuilding and you've got a franchise quarterback and you've got this offensive rich talent and you take a tight end, if you're the Chargers, you deserve to be fired. You should be fired immediately. You should be fired. Yeah, you come into your office Monday after the draft, I would fire you. Like, I don't want Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. If the Cardinals were in that situation, you take Brock Bowers at 5, you're the Chargers, everyone deserves to lose their jobs and never work in football again.
And then you look at Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
You're fine with that?
If you're the Chargers, sure. Telesco's gone. You have no allegiance to, like, if I'm Telesco and Quentin Johnson's a bust, I'm sorry, we just saw that in Arizona. We got a couple busts here. Isaiah Simmons, bye. Like, don't double down.
When you're the Chargers and you're going to be as cap strong as they are, and they have so much money invested from Joey Bosa to Khalil Mack to I think they just re-signed Mike Williams before his injury this year. I'm sure that they just sank a ton of money in Justin Herbert, and that's gonna hit here real soon as well. Like, they might benefit from a trade back and getting more draft assets down, accumulating that for the future, and then maybe playing in the sandbox for the best defensive player available still.
The Patriots, Cardinals, and Chargers are all playing outside of the Patriots' need for a quarterback. Like, they could all use more assets, right? Now, the Cardinals took their medicine last year, whereas the Patriots and the Chargers didn't. So the Cardinals are a year ahead of schedule, in my opinion, where there's a bigger sense of urgency. Like, Cardinals have their GM, head coach, and quarterback. The Chargers and the Patriots, we're assuming with Bill potentially leaving, they don't have anything. So you're just kind of starting over all over the place. So I think it makes more sense for the Cardinals to get Marvin Harrison Jr. than those two other teams because, I mean, like, I love Marvin. He's not a magic elixir that's going to cure those franchises. Like, even Marvin going to, like, the Chargers, they can't stop anybody. They're old and slow on defense, as you've outlined. So I don't know. It's nice. I don't have to worry about the Chargers. They're behind us. Matt Prater did us a favor. He was the hero that we deserved and that we needed, and he missed those field goals. And the Cardinals now have one team in their way, and hopefully they, take care of business.
I need to somehow, because I think you either blacked it out, you won't admit it. I don't know what the reason. I don't know what did he do to you?
My friend DJ White in the chat saying, what a terrible take. You've never watched Brock Bowers. Like, oh yeah, I've never watched a Georgia game before. It's more about my stigma against, like, I think a top 10 tight end is an egregious choice. It's an egregious choice for these teams that need everything to take. Kyle Pitts.
Let me ask you, where do you think it's acceptable to take Brock Bowers?
The teens, probably. The teams in the teens that are a couple players away from maybe contending in the postseason. Cardinals are a fluke because they didn't have Kyler Murray all year. I think the Cardinals would be in the teens if Kyler Murray played all year. But yeah, I think, like, the sweet spot, I don't like what's the draft order after the top 10? Throw me some team names. I don't even know. Damon, off the top of your head, draft order? Who's picking in the teens?
Maybe the Saints?
Sure. Or like the Vikings, if they're down there. Like, they got Hawkinson. Never
Vikings.
Mind.
All right, I got you. Okay,
right.
Jets at 10, Vikings at 11, Broncos at 12, Raiders, Saints, Colts, Seahawks.
Colts would be great. Seattle. These teams that are like, yeah, we'll take a little sweetener.
The Colts would be pretty solid.
Yeah, like a tight end in the top 10.
Bowers at 15 is an absolute steal.
For you, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll check
for
back.
Me and most of the population.
That's cute. He's a great player. He's a great tight end prospect. I'm not dismissing him as a prospect. I have a fundamental.
You kind of did.
I have a fundamental. It's the same thing I feel like off-ball linebackers. Fundamental disagree. Okay. Does this make you feel better? If it's a positionless ranking, if position value does not matter, which we know damn well it does, he's a top 10 player in this draft, top 8 player in this draft. Does that make you feel better? There's no way in hell I would take him in the top 10. They don't impact the game enough.
There's a different way to go about it. To be like, position value is important to you. You took Brock Bowers top 5, step into my office because you're fucking fired.
You deserve to be fired. You need Brock here. This is the argument.
The worst pick in 20 years.
This is my argument. You need Brock Bowers to be a top 3 tight end in the NFL. That's unfair to Brock Bowers to have to face that. If Joe Alt becomes a top 10 tackle, top 12 tackle, he's getting paid. The Cardinals are doing a celebration. He's a stud. He's solidified this position. It matters every play what's happening with your left tackle. It matters every play what's happening with your number 1 wide receiver. To put that on that young man. Why are we even talking about this? It's not a reality. Trey McBride saved me from having to talk about this.
But it's interesting when you start to talk about when Albright's putting that out there, that there's 3 top 5 quarterbacks. And to your point, it either goes 1, 2, 3 to, obviously the Bears, 4. The Commanders, and the Patriots. And then you got 2 teams that have identified their franchise quarterbacks in the Cardinals and the Chargers. So I'm just having that conversation.
So if Marvin Harrison Jr. is not there, he goes 3rd overall. Give me a percentage you feel like the Cardinals are going to explore trading down.
A very high percentage.
You think like 75, 80%?
No, I think it's like 50-50.
Okay.
Because there's still some very talented players. Olufashinu would be very tantalizing to just pick, stick and pick, set and forget it, and you've got 2 bookend tackles to move forward with.
You'd have to be sure that you had a close to graded player there at 5 or 7 or whatever you're going to go with. If Jaden goes 4, 5, 6, 7, Neighbors, the 2 tackles, you got to make sure that you can get one of those guys. Or I don't know what to make of Roma Dunze at this point. His yards per catch is like 20. He's insane. It's a great class. Kudos to Austin Ford for doubling down on this class. Albright, by the way, too, we've got this tweet. Said something about Marvin Harrison Jr. Cardinal fan. I asked him, is there a chance that he's there at 4? Damon Dog, do we have that tweet? I think we have it.
We do.
Maybe? Yeah, there it is. Andrew asking Albright, do you believe the Cardinals have a good shot of staying at 4 and Marvin Harrison Jr. falling into their laps? And he goes, I think that's very much on the table.
You gotta love it. And you see most mock drafts and you see the need and just the logic behind either the Patriots taking the next best quarterback at 3 post Williams in May, or trying to navigate their own rebuild a different way. I mean, I just don't feel like they're in a position like the Cardinals to draft a wide receiver when they don't have any quarterback on the roster. I mean, we'll see what they do via this offseason.
Yeah.
It's a long way to the draft, and we'll see who they identify as maybe the next quarterback there. And they could get a bridge and feel like he could get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., but a lot of work to be done between now and then.
I think you're right. 100%. We're going to know if Marvin's going to be a Patriot well before the draft. I feel like we'll be able to read the tea leaves. If they go out and they get Kirk Cousins and they're, talking him up and he gets a nice extension and they've got, Vrabel or whatever, like, I feel like, especially with Vrabel, like being part of the regime that ousted AJ Brown out of town, like we'll know, excuse me, if that happens, and we'll prepare accordingly. And I'll get emotional on the show. I'm emotionally invested, by the way, and financially invested with my friends at Desert Financial Credit Union, not only the official credit union of the Venerable House, but also the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's most largest trusted local credit union. They've got savings accounts, checking accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. If you're an Arizona sports fan, there's no better place. Do your banking with Desert Financial Credit Union. Represent the Red Sea folks with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. Show your team spirit. Open up a free checking account online. Get Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card today. Check them out. DesertFinancial.com. I promise you will not regret it. It takes about 10 minutes to sign up. Debit card immediately in the mail after the fact. Do banking easy. Tons of locations here in the Valley. Get your money when you want it with Desert Financial.
Tough to beat what's going on, of course, over at Desert Financial. Saw early in the chat today, my folks from Yuma. My wife hails from Yuma. We visit there all the time, and it's got some of the best Mexican food in the state. She grew up going to Mr. G's, Chili Pepper, La Fonda, Taco Salsa. But here in Phoenix, it's tough to find. And my wife is picky because she's a connoisseur of the Mexican cuisine. And we found it. We know our spot, and it's Sunburrows. We love Sunburrows. It's at least a once-a-week stop for the Brock family. We're hitting up Sunburrows. My wife gets the number 9. It's just as simple as the folded taco dinner with beans and rice. My son, he gets the Niño's quesadilla with the beans and the rice and the milk, and that's his standard. And then I like to mix it up. I like to keep it spicy over at Sunburrows, and they've got tons of combos out there. You can get taco, tostada, and maybe enchilada like combos. And also they've got some great chimichangas and different burros like that. So I like to mix it up. And of course, never mix up, always getting the margarita as well. You got to check out Sunburrows. It's Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. Haven't made our stop there this week, so it's either tonight or the next couple days. We're going to go stuff our face with Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. Jump online right now. Check out their full menu, Sunburrows.com. That's SOME burrows.com.
From some burrows to some super chats here. Deuce, $5. If we draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Alt, that is a win for us. I agree with that. Everything else will be gravy. GoFundMe for Marvin Harrison Jr. You get number 18 from BJ Ojolari. If we get a top 10 interior defensive line, ... I think somebody would have to destroy the offseason for a defensive lineman to be in consideration for the Cardinals. And that's somebody who, coming from somebody, I love Jerzon Newton. I watched a lot of, coming from Illinois, I watched a lot of U of I football. He's a great prospect. I think he's a top 20 prospect. And that's where that Newton should have been a Cardinal with where the Houston pick was supposed to go. And it's not going to be there. So the Cardinals aren't going to have a chance, in my opinion, to draft him. And like Bo and I outlined in our mock draft yesterday, I think it's going to be more like second round. Let's see what's available. But you can't go into the draft thinking you're going to get your franchise 5 or 3 technique. You need to open your fucking wallet and spend money in March. Go get a legitimate starting defensive lineman. Like I kid, but I'm at the same time, like, I'm going to be unbearable to be around on this show if we're sitting here in March and they don't spend big money on a defensive lineman. You have to do that. Right. Figure it out.
And I'm curious to see, and I wanted to ask Brad this, but he was so gracious with his time. Like, I didn't want to keep him here a whole half hour.
Why not?
But like, there are guys out there that, like Mike Pierce from Baltimore, who's going to be a free agent, but he's a little older. And I'm curious to see if Monty Ossenfort, like, I think that he'd be willing to spend the money. But is he going to go out there? Is he going to? Do they have to be in a certain, how old is he willing to go out there and add players to his roster, or are they going to err on the side of younger guys that they can develop? That they're not going to have to just go throw guaranteed bucks at these guys like a Pierce or somebody that might just be kind of a 2-3 year guy.
We touched on it yesterday. Like, I feel like you have to. Good franchises do not let mid-20 defensive linemen hit free agency.
With I guess the caveat that, like, you're going to also go invest a lot of that draft capital in that defensive front. So you're going to have a good mix of vets and rookies. You got a second-year guy in Dante Stills.
Welcome to team building. Like, you shouldn't build your team in free agency, but you should supplement the meat of your roster, the middle portion of your roster, with veterans that can. It's not even like you're signing him, Michael Pierce or whatever his name is not going to come here, and your expectations aren't make a Pro Bowl, be an all-pro, right? Can you come here and be Yelda Froholt? Can you come here and help other people get better and help us hold down a position? That's what they need to do. Get somebody like Wilkins, if he's available. Come here and just make us serviceable to good at this position. And if you have to overpay for that, that's the NFL. Welcome to the NFL.
Now, yesterday we looked at, you and I had one player on the defensive side of the football that we identified. And I think you and I are kind of pacing ourselves. You went a little bigger name, but not the biggest that's going to be available. Like if you're looking at the interior defensive line, the biggest name is going to be Chris Jones. And then we'll see if the Chiefs, let him hit the open market. And I went with, I tried to go with a little bit of under the radar guy. And Brad brought him up. Let's go with the offensive side of the football. And with the idea that we're pacing ourselves out of the gates, and we'll save some of the bigger names for later. You want to get into these right now?
Yeah, I saw yours already, and I am embarrassed to say yours is an excellent suggestion that could very well happen. It's an excellent suggestion, and I'm upset that I didn't think of it myself. So kudos to you, Bo Brock.
Is that
that's a
am I seeing correctly?
You're like if yours doesn't happen, I'm going to be surprised because it checks every box. I don't have that sourced. So now let's talk about mine that no one's ever heard of and probably won't happen, but I think makes a lot of sense. Damon Dog, can we see it on the screen? Mike Onwenu of the New England Patriots. Austin Ford was there when they drafted him in 2020. He plays right tackle. He plays guard. There's his PFF ranking for this past year. He's 26. He's going to be a free agent. Now, I think New England should bring him back, but he's currently set to hit the open market. He played all of right guard in 2022 and was better than he was this year, having to split time because of injury at right tackle and right guard. This is what the Cardinals need. Somebody with position versatility. You want to come and have him take over next to Yelda Froholt and Olu Fashanu at left guard. You can do that. If you want to have him come in, depending on the tape, and if he's your Band-Aid right tackle and Paris goes to the left side, this is somebody that I'm sure Belichick will be overly complimentary of. Austin Ford can make the call to everybody in New England. You can vet him. I hate that you have to spend money now on the offensive line, but it will make things better. If you get Fashanu or Alt and you bring this young man in and his only job is to play guard, kind of like Justin Pugh once upon a time. Remember the Giants were dicking him around at guard and tackle. This is a better guard than a tackle, but he can play tackle if you need help. You've got Kelvin Beachum under contract. I don't think the Cardinals are going to go nuts on the offensive side of the ball just because they have most everything taken care of. This is the kind of signing, Bo, that would make sense for them.
He would. Kind of a Swiss Army knife depth play. Does he have the ceiling? Does he have the ability to potentially start for you at left guard?
Yeah.
What is his experience on that side of the line?
None. So you'd have to be open to that. I mean, I feel like, you pay him enough money. Go play left guard for us.
Right.
I think he'd be okay with that.
I like it. I mean, I'm as much as I'm, I guess I like the idea of Jonathan Gaines coming back off the ACL. You just don't know what you're going to get out of the 4th round pick out of UCLA. The best case, like he projects to become a player like this, right? Athletic and versatile across the offensive line. And saw John Gaines working out before I left the facility for the final day of interviews there, press conferences for the Arizona Cardinals. So Gaines is working his way back. If you remember, the team tagged him the most athletic offensive lineman from the combine. So It's a good pick. It's a good pick. And it's like we said, we're pacing ourselves. And I was starting to break it down today. Did a couple docs just looking at the Cardinals roster and where it stands, where they're in a good spot, where they're in an okay spot, where they really need to kind of upgrade. And guard is one of those positions. And, Will Hernandez did you a couple solids this year by playing through some injuries. He had a back. I know he dealt with a pec the previous season. He's been so reliable, but that's not always going to be the case. You're going to have to get some depth going forward. Speaking of that, Cardinals this offseason are going to be looking for some wide receiver depth. As much as we want to bang the table and hope and wish for Marvin Harrison Jr., it's going to take more than just MHJ to get this wide receiver core back to where it needs to be. And, I was looking at some decent pieces that are going to hit the free agent market. You see some big names, right? Calvin Ridley, Michael Pittman Jr., Tee Higgins, but are they going to be available? You're going to have to look at the 2nd and 3rd tier market. And this is what I found with experience playing with Drew Petzing. Damon Dog, go ahead, throw it up there. Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was dealt this season. He didn't have the best season this year. It's around like 200 yards receiving. But I showed his receiving yards, his stats from the 2022 season where Drew Petzing was a part of that offensive staff, had more consistent quarterback play, 61 catches, 839 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Good speed, good size, 6'2", and like Johnny's guy, 26 years old. I think that's right around the age that you want the Cardinals to sign some guys that are going into their NFL prime years.
So you've got him at 26. Everywhere else I look, he's 24 years old. So
maybe he was.
So I think that's even better. This is a fantastic recommendation. I know people scoff at this. He was a 7th rounder out of Michigan, and I think did great things given the circumstances in Cleveland, the quarterback situation, the fact that, he had Amari Cooper, but he was very much like the number 2 guy with Njoku and Amari Cooper. I think he fell into a situation in Detroit where Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta, and then now Jamison Williams are so dominant now with their run game, which is the priority for them. There just wasn't room for him. I mean, shit, man, if he came here, like, I know you've got Michael Wilson. I think that's not insurance. I don't want to scoff at not taking a first-round receiver. That you could sell him on, like Zach Pascal's playing special teams. Rondell Moore could be gone. Greg Dortch plays special teams. Come and be it. We need big bodies in the red zone. He's got an elite skill set. I think big-time speed downfield. I think he scored a touchdown against the Cardinals in 2021 when they went to Cleveland on a Hail Mary. He is a nice supplemental piece that you can get something out of. And I saw that today when you put that on there. I'm like, if he's a free agent, I 100% believe they'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
Drew Petzing has immense credibility and influence as to who they bring into this offense. And if he's good, Jonathan Gannon signs off on him. They could bring him here. That could be one of the first moves. I don't want people to be underwhelmed by that, and I will do my best to vet that and see if that's a possibility. I don't know if there's a free agent wide receiver that makes more sense than Donovan Peoples-Jones now that you brought him up.
I'm not going to throw any people under the bus. Put myself on the accountability board. I Ron Burgundy it, and I just read off the teleprompter. But I may have put in that he was 24. At this time.
Wow.
But I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. Not any award-winning producer
Damon's
or
about
anything
to
like
cut
that.
this show. We'll never be on air again. Producer Damon's juggling like 100 projects. He is the one that makes the show run. I appreciate you, Producer Damon.
Thank you, Johnny. I did mess that up. And now, but you know what? Now I'm starting to think Bo might have gone back in there, edited in a
He does
4,
meddle.
and then
He's known
blamed
to
me
meddle.
because now I can't prove it.
He is known to meddle. I think based on those two depictions of those free agents, so like we have a clear directive here. The Cardinals have a clear directive. Pick your spots offensively. There's somebody that makes sense to you. You can be a little frugal. You want to do a Will Hernandez signing, go do that. The money should be saved in free agency for the defensive side of the football. Like you could go, those guys may not even be signed in March. Donovan Peoples-Jones could have to wait till after the draft to sign with somebody. So
yeah, when I'm looking at these offensive players, it was way harder to find offensive players because when I look at the defensive side, I'm like, oh, this guy would be great. This guy would be great. This guy would be, yep. Then you look at these offensive players, especially like at the guard position, the tackle position that the Arizona Cardinals could explore with the injury to DJ Humphries and him, as Brad said, his day's numbered here as a Cardinal, and where they had the left guard position in flux throughout the season and Elijah Wilkinson headed to free agency. The Arizona Cardinals, and I'm seeing some of these projected deals. It's like, I don't want the Arizona Cardinals to have to pay like 3 for 35 for some maybe like starting caliber guard. Like if he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber, sure, but what are we doing here? Like that's the thing about free agency that I hate, is that you sometimes have to go overspend for a player that's not worth it because you're just trying to fill a hole.
I hope that they don't have to do that at tackle. I hope that they feel confident enough with the pipeline that they built, Beachum and a rookie they could get by. That's the only position where you can't be vulnerable there. Because I think they can go out and find another Yelderfeld hold left guard. Like, I have so much confidence in this coaching staff, the offensive line coach that they brought over from Cleveland. Like, keep plucking people from Cleveland if you feel that comfortable with that. Maybe there's a guy we're not talking about from Cleveland that plays on the interior offensive line, but Froholt was not on our radar this time last year, and that was a godsend signing. Will Hernandez played the best football, in my opinion, of his career, as you mentioned, gutted through injury. So the tackle position, you can't F around. Make sure, invest, but everything else is going to be just like picking your spots, see who's a scheme fit, who's a culture fit. But man, oh man, like that first day of free agency, we'll be doing shows like breaking news, Cardinals sign X player for X amount of dollars. They're going to be playing in that sandbox. I like everything that I've heard, like, and I don't want to set people up for disappointment like I'm doing apparently with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like they know the severity of how this season went with the defensive side of the ball. There was nobody left. And it's a testament to them that they weren't getting blown out 15-0 every Sunday. But you cannot supplement 7 new front 7 players or 7 new starting defenders in the NFL draft.
That's right.
How many picks you
said, by the way, that was my next. I'm serious. I think you need to add like 9 to 10 players to this front 7. Look at the front 7. Like
I don't want to. Don't make me.
Here's who you have as far as the front 7. The pass rushers: B.J. Ojulari, Zaven Collins, Dennis Gardeck, Victor Dumakagi. Those are your edge rushers.
And they're not going to pick up Zaven's 5th-year option.
Here's your defensive line. Dante Stills, Roy Lopez, and Jonathan Ledbetter is an exclusive rights free agent. So I think it's pretty easy. You just, hey, we're going to
Roy was solid. What about that guy from Tennessee? You try to bring him back?
Jones?
Yeah, he made a tackle for loss.
Yeah, he was on the squad. Yeah, he's back.
He's got a team uniform.
He can be, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you need to add, like you said, as far as that defensive front 7, you need to add at least 7 guys through free agency in the draft.
Here's what you need to do. You need to sign guys to 2 to 3 year deals, maybe a 4-year deal for somebody special that's worth it, because you cannot anticipate like a draft pick. And I know they did a hell of a job coming in and being an ass kicker from day one. Like best case scenario, they pop year 2 and they contribute year 1. But we're not using our first pick on a defensive player. We may not use our second pick on a defensive player. You need to have guys. I don't want to force day 2 picks into the starting lineup in September unless they earn it. If it's Michael Wilson, he goes out and takes it and he earns it, awesome. But you better have somebody ready to go that's a veteran that started games in the NFL that can be a plus player for you at defensive tackle or defensive end, because it's not fair to the rookie class. Especially the expectations have changed dramatically. You can fuck around and start Starling Thomas and Dante Stills on a team that's projected to win no games. It's not favored in any games. This team wants to win games and get to the playoffs next year. Unless they've earned it, I don't want to see a 4th rounder out of the Mountain West starting at defensive end one week because you didn't sign anybody. Figure that out. Spend money. You have to spend money, guys, and they will. I'm preaching to people that already know that they're going to take care of business. They're going to handle it.
Sports Hero front 7 equals UFL starters. Deuce chiming in with the $2 super chat saying Monty plays 4D chess. We'll never comprehend him. Look, I mean, Monty we trust, right? It's gonna be an interesting offseason. We've seen him, and he's done it well, and he tore it down, and he got this team in a position to have a huge offseason. Now it's like, all right, let's see what Monty the Builder looks like, right? It sounds like a children's television show. Monty the Builder. He's got his hammer, he's got his helmet on, and he's ready to just construct a roster that's going to contend after a 4-win season. Just to see him remove. It's fantastic to think about. Easton jumping in with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Easton, for your contributions today. I've been saying we are in a prime position to stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 because of the elite quarterback shortage in the NFL.
From your lips to God's ears, Easton, we need that more than anything. Illadre, $4.99, friend of the program. Bo, you're going to give Johnny an aneurysm about Brock Bowers. Stop. It's so nice, Illadre, though, that a player that I not despise.
Wow. You can't even disguise it any longer. You're just
a position in the top 10 that I despise was thwarted single-handedly by a player that I love that was taken appropriately in the 2nd round in Trey McBride. It's almost poetic that happened, that Trey McBride said, Bo Brock, I'm going to stiff arm your narrative about taking a top 10 tight end and Brock Bowers to this franchise. Because you know what? Tight ends, they belong a little bit later. You can do just fine with a George Kittle in the 5th round or a Sam Laporta in the 2nd round. Brock Bowers, there's a good chance Brock Bowers is never as good as Sam Laporta, I think. Sam Laporta breaking records this year, had almost like 1,000 yards.
He had an amazing season. Yeah, he's the exception, though. I mean, those guys that you meant, obviously Kelsey, and you add Kittle and everybody seems to be outside of TJ Hawkinson, late round magic. But for every one of those guys, you've got, a dozen to, misses. Like, how many tight ends do you see go onto a roster and then are gone a year later? It's a tough position, and it's tough when they evaluate, just because you have to do so much. And that's what it was really interesting and awesome to see Elijah Higgins make the transition as well as he did from receiver to tight end. It's not that easy. Like, remember the Antonio Gates craze? Like, oh, everybody go just find a basketball player and convert them. It's like, no, you got to block. You got to NFL edge rushers. That ain't easy. You got to have good technique. You got to be strong as shit. And you got to be able to be athletic and good.
They're some of the most
route runner.
athletic people in the league, for sure.
They really are.
Alex, $4.99 super chat. How would you guys feel about moving Zaven back to middle linebacker? With all due respect, Alex, I think the question is, how would you feel about Zaven moving to another team? I think that's going to be the question.
I was going to be a little bit more polite, more respect to Zaven and also Alex's question. Like,
okay, go ahead.
He doesn't fit what Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rollis want from their off-ball linebackers. They're more just a little bit bigger safeties, not much bigger. Like Kazir White, just like 6'1", 6'2", anywhere from like 220 to 230. Zaven's too big to play off-ball linebacker for this team. But you can trash him if you want. Go ahead.
I'm not trashing him.
You did.
No, I didn't. I didn't trash him. He is a great person, great human being, great soldier this year. Ben saying I saw some stuff, good stuff. AZ Sports saying Zaven wasn't rushing the passer all that much. They were using him differently. That's why he's quiet on the stat sheet. I would say if that's the case, that's really unfortunate because they should have used him to rush the passer because no one else rushed the passer because they had no sacks from anybody. So if the idea was, well, Zaven, we have to save you from rushing the passer, do something else because we're getting all these sacks somewhere else, that's a mistake because they weren't. So I just think Zaven Collins is a tremendous athlete like Isaiah Simmons that right now is an average NFL player. But you see Zaven Collins and he's huge and he's athletic and he's got a great attitude and that's why he's here. And I hope that he can take a next step, a leap next year with the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, he got 17 games and he couldn't rush the passer the last 3 months of the season. You're an edge rusher. You're paid to rush the passer. I know he set the edge.
Well, it's true too. When you don't have big boys in the middle open up pass rush lanes, it's tough. And when you have guys who are playing the position for the first time in their careers, it's also tough. And Zaven Collins, at the very least can have a roster spot next season and has an opportunity to make a jump preparing to play the position.
He'll be on the team. Yeah. I'm sorry. I took a shot at his roster situation.
It's all right.
He's a super nice guy.
It was a joke.
He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
I'm scoring. This franchise has taken so many first round busts. And is he a bust at this point? When I answer that, you don't have to answer.
I'll answer. I mean, what he was drafted to do, like he's already been asked to switch. And look, it's not his fault that Steve Keim took him, and another organization was going to take him. And
he was going to go to the Raiders at 19. Yeah. He was going to be a top 20 pick.
Yeah, and maybe he would have had better success playing a better defense. And Vance Joseph is not kind to any young, especially rookie players. And yeah, I mean, bust is a tough word, but especially for somebody that's done everything that they've been asked to do to give the team a chance and give himself a chance.
I think we just need to be reconditioned as to what a first round pick is supposed to be.
Oh yeah. We're already there.
Yeah.
It hurts. Sure. It sucks to have to look back and see the malpractice that was going on with Steve Keim. Was he on Cowherd today? You sent me a screenshot. Was he on Cowherd today?
I almost posted that on Twitter and then I decided not to. Don't go give them views with him. I watched just in case he said something about the Cardinals and then But yeah, he was on Cowherd with an oil painting of Pat Tillman behind him.
Yeah. Weird. Like they're like, hey, Steve, can you dress up your background a little bit? And he just took some Pat Tillman oil painting and put it in like a weird spot. Like, hey, is this good enough? You're like, whatever, Steve.
He was very adamant that the Bears should take Caleb Williams, though.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm not jealous, Antoine, of Anthony, of Zaven Collins. Well, I am. He's an elite player. He's a millionaire playing in the NFL. He's an elite athlete, I should say. And I do not put him in the same category as Isaiah Simmons. Like they got rid of Isaiah Simmons because he was like a me guy. Zaven Collins is the opposite of that.
Right.
Zaven Collins is a great person, as you saw with J.J. Watt last year. I just wish he was worthy of a first round pick that they used on him, and he hasn't been, and that's disappointing. Because I would love to be able to say, you know what, they've got Zaven, they've got B.J. Ojulari. You can take a year off of an edge rusher. Clearly, they cannot. So let's say you sign Brian Burns and B.J. Ojulari's on the team, where's Zaven? He's a rotational depth piece. He was the 16th overall pick in the draft. I think that's where we're trending to. So when I make a comment like, yeah, he might not be on he could be on a different team. Okay, well, we're talking about opening the checkbook, and people want to trade for Brian Burns or sign Josh Allen. Who do you think gets replaced in the starting lineup? Not the kid that this regime took in the top 50 last year that had the most pressures on the team.
Yeah.
It's going to be the guy who's on the last year of his deal that they're not picking up his fifth-year option. Like this isn't about these aren't personal shots. It's just let's just do the math. He didn't produce this year,
right.
and they're gonna upgrade. So what does that mean for him? Not good things.
And to answer the question, really overall, because Kazir White is really your only true proven commodity returning off-ball linebacker once he gets healthy from the bicep injury. He's already rehabbing in Los Angeles. Owen Papo, I don't know if you saw enough, continues to be a project, and you hope he makes the leap. But I think that the Arizona Cardinals, with Josh Woods and Chris Barnes being impending free agents, that the Arizona Cardinals, they can find, and I've got full confidence, especially in JG and Nick Rollis in the coaching staff, to take whoever Monty Ossenford identifies as a scheme fit. And it's going to be guys built like Kazir White, not so much built like Zaven Collins. It's going to be guys that are going to be like 6'1", 6'2", more like 220 to 230. It's not going to be a big guy like Zaven.
Jean-Paul Edward Dios, good for depth. I agree with that. Like, he's going to be on the team, and he probably will be better in a rotational role where he doesn't have to take ownership of everything on the defensive line. But again, I'm not going to hold this regime to Keim taking him 16th overall. It was either going to be him or Najee Harris. How that would have worked out probably wouldn't have been good either. So I think he'll be on the team. They need depth. Do I have huge aspirations of him now becoming a double-digit sack artist? No, I don't. I think he'll probably be off the team in 2025 would be my guess.
Yeah, he gets the Hassan Reddick opportunity, right? Where they won't pick up the fifth, go into a contract year, and they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed, take the next step at the position. And, he's going to be game for that. But I think that, it would be Monty Ossenfort's job to go out there and find starting caliber edge rushers. He's got to, along with the other front seven pieces that they need to add.
Anthony's upset with me in the chat. I hope he slaps you in the face with your own take. He had every chance this year to do that. We were waiting for him to sack the quarterback. How many sacks do they have in the last 2 months of the year? None. He didn't have a sack since before Halloween. He had every opportunity. We kept waiting for it to happen. Could still happen. But is anybody willing to bank on it happening? I would say let's just use logic here. He's a rotational defensive end. He used to play stand-up linebacker. He's never consistently showed an ability to rush the passer. They're bringing in new players. I don't think that bodes well for him. Just say it out loud. It's okay.
If you get Brian Burns, if you get Chase Young, if you get Jonathan Grenard, guys that have produced in this league, yes, he's going to be behind him on the depth chart. That's it. It's a nicer way of saying it. But overall, today, it's a win. Pete Carroll is no longer the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West. Drop a like for that. No doubt about it. If you agree Johnny's being a meanie, drop a like for that as well. We're still at war with our friends here in the PHNX offices.
Let's just sign all of our friends to the Cardinals. Let's just be friends with everybody. We're gonna sign all of our friends, everybody we're cool with, all the guys on the USFL. Doesn't matter if they're great players. Yeah, and we'll just go 0-17 every year, and this show can be about holding hands and being buddies with everybody. That's fine. And who talks to the media and who's fun in vlogs and who wears cool outfits. Yeah, that's what we want. Or do you want to fucking win games? That's what it's about. Winning games and producing. What are we doing?
Well, somebody get this man a Capri Sun and calm his ass down.
Can you play or not? That's what this show is. This is about. We want great players. Trey McBride, great player. Kyler Murray, great player. Winning games. Good. Keep those guys around.
Don't disagree with
That's
that.
it.
Go PHNX.com. Become a diehard today. That's where you're going to find elite coverage right there.
Elite.
Spielberger breaking down the Suns. You got Craig Morgan writing about the Coyotes. Big win last night for the Yotes. Look at them Desert
Red
Dogs.
hot.
You got Anthony churning out work there for U of A Sports, and so much more. Go PHNX.com. Get exclusive access to the member Discord. Only way to do that, become a diehard today. You get a free shirt each and every year. Get a Bird Gang shirt like Johnny's wearing, maybe the hat you got going on as well. Johnny's rocking it all. He's head to toe. He's G'd up from the
Company
feet up
man
with PHNX gear. You can find that PHNXlocker.com. Anything else?
Yeah. Like and subscribe. Leave us a like. We'd love a like. We'd love a comment.
And a post-show comment as well. As we spike the football, that Jonathan Gannon's matching of wits against the coaches in this division just got a third easier. Not too bad, right? And you still got McVay. And
We've already gotten better this offseason. We haven't done a damn thing. We already got better.
That's right. Free agency up next after the playoffs and Super Bowl. And then we got the NFL draft, which Damon and I were going to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, because we own the offseason here at PHNX. We are not going to leave a stone uncovered as far as this draft. Pivotal for the Arizona Cardinals and their rebuild. Prospects, you're going to know everything about them because we're going to be out there at the college all-star games, the combine, and more. Don't miss out on any of the action with PHNX Sports. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Leave a rating wherever you find podcasts. Of course, leave a review. Everybody loves a Johnny rant. Absolutely. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you Thursday here on PHNX Cardinals.
We all silly like the mayor.